Season 4 of the On the Way podcast focused on the fruit of the Spirit that Paul lists in Galatians 5, 22, and 23. If you missed any of those episodes, you can find them at baptiststandard.com/podcasts or on Apple, Google, Spotify, or Stitcher, or on our app, which is available in the Apple and Android app stores. Today, we have a special episode of On the Way, an interview with Fernando Ortega, a nationally acclaimed Christian recording artist that I've known since I was a young boy. In honor of the Christmas holiday, we spend most of our time talking about family. We have with us today Fernando Ortega. This is a real treat. Fernando and I have known each other for quite a while. We don't hang out all the time like we used to, which is, I don't know, maybe good or bad for each of us. But at any rate, Fernando, we are so glad that you are with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And for those who don't know, and I can't imagine that there's anybody who doesn't know, Fernando Ortega is a recording artist. He has about 21 albums to his credit.
Records,
yeah, that's incredible.
Well, so I think of the 21, 2 of those were EPs, so they're six songs instead of a full album.
Well, you know, sometimes it's harder to cut it down than to...
And what's interesting is now people are doing, it's just always a new single.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I like because I can finish a song and then turn it in and then go on to the next thing. But I really miss the idea of doing a full record, you know? Yeah. Yeah,
because with a full record, you have a story arc. Like your latest one with The Passion of the Christ.
Crucifixion of Jesus.
Crucifixion of Jesus, yeah.
Yeah. And that was designed to be, that was going to be a whole series of records. Like I was going to do Crucifixion, then I was going to go back and do Advent, Christmas, Epiphany, or Advent, Birth of Christ, Epiphany, then Lent, and then Crucifixion, Resurrection, Pentecost, you know, and all those things. It's like the Sufjan Stevens when he was going to do all the 50 states.
Oh, yeah.
And he did like 3, and then that was the end of that whole thing.
I guess you get tired at a certain point.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I only did one record. I should at least do Resurrection so that people know that I actually believe that Christ rose from the dead, you know.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to start there, actually, because one of the things that we talked about in a written interview that we did of you, and we'll have the link to that in the podcast information, but you've served as a worship leader in 8 different churches. Which is pretty incredible. And the thing about that, one of the things that's incredible about that, a lot of worship leaders will serve in one denomination, maybe several churches, but in one denomination. Yeah. And you've served in Baptist, Congregational, Episcopal, Anglican, Evangelical Free, Presbyterian. What else?
Pentecostal. But I wasn't, you know, in a couple of those churches, I wasn't the guy, but I was a guy who led worship here and there.
Yeah.
So
and those are very different, not just denominations and theologies, but like styles of worship to go. I mean, for example, Pentecostal to Episcopal. I mean, how different can you get?
Yeah. So, and luckily I didn't have those back to back. Although there are plenty of charismatic Anglican churches popping up around. I meet a lot of those people on the road, and you know. Yeah. And it's interesting having it's kind of vineyardy, but then you've got the mass, you've got the liturgy that they follow, and so it's interesting.
Yeah.
But Pentecostalism was a weird one for me. I think the church that I was in was so it was pretty out there, even for a Pentecostal church. Some of the stuff that they taught was. You know.
Yeah. Well. All right.
But you know, I learned how to improvise on the piano in that church, because before I was just like, I think I was 17 when I started playing there. And I knew, you know, I played classical music, I read notes, but I didn't really know how to just, you know, cut loose on a chord progression. So I would stand up on the stage, and the bass player, a guy named Doug, would stand next to me, and he would just yell out G, C, and I kind of would I would just go oompa 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 oompa. You know, I would just play these chords, and then you know from there I started to loosen up a little bit and play scales or arpeggios, and you know that's just how I learned.
Yeah, it's like jazz.
A little bit like jazz, not nearly as sophisticated,
Hmm.
but yeah, similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely a little more freewheeling than like high church, liturgical, Presbyterian or Episcopal worship.
Yeah, very much so. When I finally became an Episcopal worship leader, was here in town at St. Mark's on the Mesa Episcopal Church, and the rector there, he was very formal, and
Hmm.
and so I was so nervous that the church organist would sit in a chair and just tell me what to do next, because and you don't. And one thing I loved about that was that this is the first time I was leading worship from behind the congregation in the balcony.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Where the
the,
choir is.
where the choir is, yeah.
Yeah.
And the organ was back there. Everything was back there. So if somebody wanted to see who I was, they'd have to like turn around and crane their neck and look over the railing of the balcony. But I liked the idea that there's not this personality up front, and they're not relying on like cues from you, or your smile. All those things play into a worship leader, like your
Yeah.
demeanor, everything. My job was just to sing. When it came time to sing, I didn't talk. I just sang. So or led. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. I missed that.
Do you see yourself doing that again?
No.
Okay. You don't miss it that much.
I after this last church worship leading position I had,
Yeah.
it can just get so political. Churches can be so political, some of the stuff has been really I don't know. It's really caused a lot of anxiety when stuff happens that just doesn't seem motivated by you know gospel teaching, or motivated by following Christ. It's just political stuff. It's power
Yeah.
plays and stuff, and I think that's just inherent in a small church or in a big church. There's always going to be that. For me, and maybe for just now, I think I want to stay away from being on a church staff and then just attend church for a while, because I really haven't done it for decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's seasons. Yeah. And you have to sort of step away and allow yourself to be ministered to.
Yeah, I think there's partly that, and then just getting tired from. I think those things kind of erode after a while. Erode at your, I call them soft erosions of your faith. When they kind of pile up and everything. But
Yeah.
so the last experience I had was a little bit was very difficult for me.
I got you.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we were exploring in the written interview is your family heritage, and we didn't get to spend a lot of time on that. So I'm wondering about, one of the things you have mentioned to me is some genealogical work that you've recently started,
Yeah.
and some of the things that you're finding out about your family, and you say a little bit about that in the written interview. I'd like to hear more about some of that, because it's exciting to me and it's exciting to you.
Yeah, it began because Ruby had requested one of those DNA tests for Christmas or her birthday, which they are her birthday's in December. Ruby's my daughter. So
Yes.
so we got it last year, and it was interesting. I told her, because this little portion that came up that said, I forgot how it worked. If I had it on, if I could look at it right now, I could explain it better. But that somewhere in her bloodline, it showed that she was like 60% more directed from Neanderthals than everybody else who had taken the test. And so I said that really makes sense of how your room looks and how you keep the bathroom and stuff. But
She's going to
anyway,
appreciate you sharing that with the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they put that in there, but so there was interesting stuff that came up, but also just faces started popping up, saying this person is a relative from this town, and there are people that I didn't know who they are. So maybe a couple of them seemed like distant cousins that I remember meeting that person. But so I decided to do a family tree, and so that
Okay.
was a whole different website, and and so I've built I found a lot. It took me several months to get to the point where I am, and now I've just kind of taken a break from it. But yeah, so the Ortegas, the first Ortega that I'm descended from, came to Albuquerque from Mexico, and lived somewhere close to where I live now, the North Valley of Albuquerque.
Wow.
And he was born here in 1614, and then he died in I think Juarez, Mexico. So he went back to
Okay.
Mexico. His wife stayed here, and then there were more children, and they ended up moving up north to like the Santa Cruz area. I point that way because that's
Yeah.
from right here.
It's just north for you, yeah.
That's north right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was just able to look at those different families, and I think this first guy, I can't remember his name. I had it memorized a couple of weeks ago, but anyway, he had 4 kids. I think 3 daughters and 1 boy, and that one boy had a kid named Geronimo, who died at the age of 23, and he had only one child. But the child of Geronimo, the son of Geronimo, had 18 kids. So
That's
that
incredible.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Same wife, and then you have to go back and look at different sources, just to make sure that you're seeing the right information. So there's 18 kids, and then later on down the line, a few generations later, somebody else had 18 kids, and then my great grandfather had 16 kids. So anyway, there's a lot of Ortegas wandering around.
Yeah, that's a big family tree.
Yeah, and what's weird is and then you do actually see instances of like first cousins marrying each other and stuff, which might explain why I have this toe growing out of the back of my neck. Anyway, so it's just been so interesting to see all these names, And,
Yeah.
But now I have to go down and research each kid, because from those kids, many of them had huge families, 11 kids, 12 kids. It's going to take forever to really get to the bottom of it all.
Yeah. I mean, that's you won't have time to go back into music ministry.
Yeah, it's just going to be
Yeah.
genealogy from here on out.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll be right back after a 15-second sponsor break.
Since 1952, South Texas Children's Home Ministries has focused on healing hearts and sharing hope. Their 9 ministries focus on helping hurting children and families, all regardless of an individual's ability to pay. To find out more, visit www.stchm.org.
Well, at some point, your family became fairly accomplished, I would say pretty accomplished musicians. I know that your mom played accordion.
Yeah.
You play the piano and accordion. What other instruments does your family play, and how long has music been a part of your family?
So on my dad's side, my grandfather was my grandfather Juan Melquiades in Chimayo.
Yes.
That's
in
north.
Yes, in north.
And he was a singer. And I even found in the archives at UNM, there are recordings of my grandfather singing as a young man.
Oh wow!
Showing this guy, he was kind of like, who's the guy the guy from PBS who goes around and does all?
Ken Burns.
Yeah, he was like a New Mexico's version of Ken Burns. His name was John Donald Robb was his name, Robb, and he has this book where he just went around finding, the different singers and musicians from around New Mexico, and he spent a couple of days with my grandfather, recorded him singing, different folk songs that are, lost now.
Yeah, that's a treasure.
Yeah. So Grandpa was a singer, and I don't know beyond that, earlier than him, who was a musician. But so he passed down that to his kids, and my dad had a very sweet voice, a kind of a medium tenor voice, and he could harmonize, and he loved singing. He played the harmonica.
Okay.
And then my mom she was from Mora, which is also north, but more like over there. But anyway,
more northeast, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, good for you.
Yeah.
And she learned to play the button accordion. She got it from I think one of her aunts gave her the accordion. And So, and I don't know how, I play the accordion, but I don't play the button accordion. I just play the one with the, you know what I mean, the regular keyboard keys. But she was pretty good. I mean, she learned how to play. There's the chords on this side, you know, and then she could just the keys. Like if you go out, it plays one note. Then you go in, it plays another note. And I never could figure that out. Never had the patience to, anyway. but she played all kinds of stuff, you know, and it was just sweet. We have a lot of videos of her that we took over the years.
Yeah.
So but then because of their music, you know, and the way they loved music, we sang a lot in the car, and we drove all over the state. We really, Dad took us fishing, you know, during the summer. We were all over the place, lakes and streams in the nether regions of New Mexico. But we would just in the car sing, and it was the songs we did were just weird, like I've been working on the railroad all the live long, and we'd all have harmonies, you know.
Yeah.
It was like a serious Presbyterian. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. You made these songs sacred?
We did. We would pray before and after we sang. You know,
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, it's those are really fun times. And so my brother, okay, so we moved to Ecuador when I was 11 years old, and I was already playing the piano at that point.
Which is, for those who are not familiar with the globe, that's south of Mexico.
That's right. That's
yes.
That
Okay.
Way.
Okay.
Through Mexico, Central America, Colombia. Is it Colombia that's on top of Venezuela? No, Colombia,
yes.
then Ecuador.
Yeah.
So we lived there, and I found a piano teacher right away. This guy, he was an Ecuadorian guy, spoke no English, and I was just learning Spanish at that point. I remember that he used to smoke these cheap cigars during my lesson, and like, you know, he'd tell me something to do, and then he'd go to the wall and go and it was just kind of nasty, this guy. So we fired him and got a nice missionary lady from somewhere in Indiana or something.
And she just smoked the little cigarettes, right?
Cloves. Yeah, she was a cloves. She also chewed tobacco, but
okay, but she didn't have that hacking cough.
no.
So that made her better.
Anyway, so she taught me a lot. Marie Davis was her name. And then my brother picked up classical guitar, and he just blossomed on that thing. So my brother now makes his living at music as well, though he doesn't like to travel, so he stays around here mostly. And
when you're good enough, you don't have to travel, right?
That's right.
Is that what he tells you?
Yeah. And that's why I travel all the time. So.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
We'll be right back after this short sponsor break. High Ground Advisors has a 90-year history of providing investment management and planned giving solutions to churches, faith-based organizations, and charitably minded individuals dedicated to transforming lives. High Ground is trusted by over 450 nonprofit clients, and we're one of them. High Ground has partnered with Baptist Standard for over 70 years by offering a comprehensive charitable giving and investment solutions model, which includes asset management, planned giving education and development, account support services, real estate and minerals management, and expert legal consultation. High Ground and the Baptist Standard share similar values, such as serving those who are called and dedicated to transforming lives and being a trusted caretaker of legacies. They also value good stewardship, helping those who desire to be good stewards of their financial resources to find creative giving solutions to fulfill that calling. We trust High Ground and consider them a loyal partner because they deliver the performance results we depend on to grow our mission. With nearly a century dedicated to the nonprofit sector, and as a nonprofit themselves, they understand the needs and challenges specific to us. They give us the opportunity to work with people who share our faith and values. They come alongside our mission in ways that other investment management firms can't. They know that what they do to protect, strengthen, and grow our mission is ultimately in service to the gospel. To learn more about how High Ground can partner with you or your organization, visit their website at highgroundadvisors.org.
So tell me something about the accordion. I'm interested in that because it's not an instrument that just anybody takes up and plays. It seems like one of those things that you either appreciate or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of accordion jokes, just like banjo jokes, you know. Um, I don't know enough about it really to
Hmm.
talk very intelligently about it. I I met this producer out in LA when I was living out there. I lived out there for 22 years. John Schreiner, he produced
Hmm. Yeah.
most of my records that I've done, and we co-wrote so many songs together. And he just said, "Hey, we should put accordion on this song." And then watching him do it, I thought, "Wow, that's just cool." And I went and got one for myself at a secondhand store. I think I have 5 accordions right now out in the back in this
Okay.
storage room in the back. But I love the sound of it. I find it very charming and warm and folksy
Hmm.
and it just once we added it to my records, it just had every record I did subsequently had accordion in it. You know,
Yeah.
we like the sound of like doubling. A lot of times you hear Irish music where they double, where the accordion and the fiddle will double the line. They'll play these
Yes.
lightning fast runs, and it has this certain sound that comes out. So, I like that a lot. We've used that a lot on my records.
Yeah, I would say it adds a quality to your music that is distinctly yours.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's an identifier for your music in a lot of ways.
Huh. I played it in all the shows, when I was traveling with the band. Now it's harder because it's usually just me at the piano and a cellist. And so it's harder to introduce accordion to that mix. Plus,
Well,
it's a,
and if you
yeah.
wear it around, your chest while you're sitting at the piano, it kind of gets in the way.
I can do it though.
You can.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I've even done stuff where I was somehow playing left hand bass notes and then playing the accordion and somehow rigging it. I've done some weird, like a circus monkey. I've even had like a djembe here,
Okay.
drum, and then hit the drum while I was playing the piano and using the pedal. It was weird. Um, yeah, you have to get resourceful when there's a low budget on the music for the music ministry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Going back to your family,
Yeah.
one of the things I'm interested in, curious about, is different families and even different cultures. There tends to be one side of the family that's dominant. Sort of the culture of that side of the family carries through, or maybe it's just a cultural thing, like a family is patrilineal versus matrilineal. The dad, things come through the dad, or versus things coming through the mom. For your family, because I know Ortega has a particular heritage, uh, which side of your family holds more sway? Your mom's side or your dad's side?
This is a really hard question for me because I would say, my dad. People when I talk about my family and my life and my music, I
Yeah.
constantly tend to talk about Chimayo, which is where my dad was from, and
Yes.
and the lineage there. This is the one that I trace back to 1614. Um, my mom's when I was doing the family tree, this was interesting because there was such a wealth of information on the Ortegas in northern New Mexico, in Chimayo area, Santa Cruz area. It was very easy to find stuff. My mom, I kept just hitting dead ends, dead ends. In
Hmm.
fact, um, she never knew her own grandparents,
Oh,
and
wow.
and her mom was not on friendly terms with them at all. So she never spoke about them. So my mom died. My mom died in May of 2020, saying she never knew who her grandparents were and kind of lamenting that.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
and then after that is when I did the family tree and I found these people and I even found her great grandparents
Wow.
in Santa Fe. But it ends there. And the records are vague. I can't find out like who had how many children. I just find like a name.
Yeah.
But that being said, my mom I always describe her, and all of us feel this way, that she was the sun in the Ortega solar system.
Hmm.
She was a powerful person.
Yeah.
And my dad, too, my dad was a very highly educated man with a very amazing academic career. Not academic career, but he was a professor, but I mean, he had a few degrees, and he had more in like a diplomatic career, really. But my mom was a strong person.
Yeah.
So they had their influences in very different ways, I would say.
Yeah, the reason I think that I asked that question, you and I have talked before about how, for me, your music always takes me home. Yeah, I grew up in Albuquerque, and that's where we first met each other. And so knowing how much northern New Mexico is a part of who you are, and even is a part of your music, and so when I think about home, I think about my parents, and they still live in Albuquerque, but it just... you can't think about home without thinking about the family ties and the influence that family has on who you are and what you do and why you do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And then, I'd say music from both sides, like I said, and then when my parents met in junior high school in Santa Fe at a boarding school. They both came from Catholic families that converted very decisively to the Presbyterian Church. So at Allison James School in Santa Fe, and then at Manal School here in Albuquerque,
Yes. Okay.
where is the campus where we lived when I was born, actually, in 1957. Music and specifically reading the hymnal was a big deal. So that's how harmonies, I think, were introduced to our family from the Presbyterian hymnal.
Gotcha.
And then me sitting in church as a little kid, you always had a hymnal in front of your face, and you're watching these four parts go by. And I could hear my mom singing. She usually sang more of a tenor part than an alto part, I think. I can't really remember, but my dad was decidedly a tenor part. But then all around us, you could hear people harmonizing and the choir harmonizing, and so that's why I mean the music comes from both sides, the influence from both sides. But such radically different families. My dad's family was very poor compared to my mom's family. Dad had 11 kids. My mom, her dad died when she was 3 months old.
Oh wow!
And then so there was another marriage and more brothers and complicated.
Yeah. Well, this interview is going to air during the holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's a time when many of us are either returning in our mind or maybe in person to our families. This will be 2021, so in 2020, maybe we didn't get to do that. 2021 is going to be an interesting year to get back together with our families, those of us who weren't able to do that. And you have a Christmas album. I think every professional musician is contracted to record at least one.
That's right. I'm working on a second one now, actually.
Okay. All right. And we typically think of Christmas as, at least in more liturgical settings, is associated with Advent, that season of anticipation and waiting for Christ's birth. And you even have a song that ties together family and Advent, Ruby's Advent song.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was intended to be a Christmas song. Some people may think it is because it has Advent in the title, but just sort of commonly understood, Advent means a notable arrival. And I would say what I've seen of you and Ruby, that for you, Ruby was absolutely a notable arrival in your life.
Yeah, she was. I mean, we couldn't get pregnant for so long, and people were praying for us, and there were miscarriages and anyway, and we were old. I was 52 when Ruby was born. so yeah, her arrival was an answer to so many. I mean, our prayers, definitely my family's prayers, but then prayers from my fans of my music that knew about that, and friends and everything, and just after a lot of sadness, a lot of just like I said, there was a failed adoption in there. Adoption that we actually adopted a little girl, and then the mother changed her mind and took her back. And
So grief upon grief.
Grief upon grief, and then
Yeah.
Ruby, she was, when she came, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so the reason I call it Ruby's Advent song is because she was born in Advent.
Okay. So it really is then. Yeah.
Yeah, December 5th. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think of it, yes, as the longing for Christ to be born, but now, again, now the longing for him to return.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, she's great. This is funny. This morning I dropped her off at school. She likes to get there very early. School starts at 8. She wants to be there at 7:25 or earlier. So,
wow. Okay.
I'm not a morning person, but wow, it's brutal. But anyway, we got there today, and we always have to drive through the senior parking lot. And there's all these seniors sitting in their cars, talking and smoking, and looking very hip. They're very I don't know, strange.
Bohemian.
Bohemian, but that's a good word.
Yeah.
So I drove by today, and I see the same girls in the same Jeep every morning. So I just kind of waved, and they kind of looked up, but they didn't wave back. And Ruby said, "Dad, seriously, did you just wave at the seniors? Who does that? Oh my gosh!" And so she was so embarrassed that she could hardly wait to get out of the car and go running away.
I tell my kids in the morning, tell everybody I said hi.
Yeah.
And they all say, no, I'm not going to do it, Dad.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. I'm going to show up like next week. I'm going to buy some kind of weird mask and a big pointy hat. And when she comes out from school, I'm going to wave, "Hi, Ruby," and embarrass the heck out of her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That'll be great.
Yeah. Well, clearly, art is strong in this one. To borrow from Star Wars, she has this artistic gene too. What, as you look back at your heritage, and you're in a place where you're looking forward at what is going to be carried forward of your heritage.
Yeah.
What do you see growing in Ruby?
Well, one thing I can't let go by is weaving. I come from a family of weavers. My grandfather was a renowned weaver. His weavings, two of his weavings belong to the Smithsonian Institution and the Museum of American History. And they're in the permanent collection, so they come in and out of display. I don't know if they're up right now, but they have been in the last 5 years.
Okay.
And then his father and his brothers, many of them were weavers, and very well-known weavers, carrying on this tradition of it's kind of like Navajo design, I would say, these geometric figures, which is pretty much all you really can do on a loom, or on the kind of a two-harness loom like they did.
Okay.
So he taught me to weave, my brother, and I have a loom in the back yard here, which is also north of here, just a few feet. But that needs to be passed on to Ruby, that one thing. And this morning, very specifically, I said, as we were pulling into the parking lot, right before I ruined the day by waving to the seniors, but what do you see yourself doing, Ruby? Are you thinking music is the thing? And she just was emphatic. Absolutely, she said. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I just recorded this song. Over the last 3 months, I've been recording a single song. It's taken forever, but a Bob Dylan song called "Dark Eyes."
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so at the end, there was just some little harmony things that I wish were on there, and I just decided to try Ruby out on the part, and she nailed it, man. Her intonation and her sense of rhythm and the way she could match the vowels of me and the primary background singer was remarkable. It's beautiful.
So the life of the song is in her.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm going to tune her down. I don't want her to steal my thunder. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. She's got a future ahead of her. She can get the spotlight later, right?
Well, yeah. No, that's right. And I'm kidding, but there's I'm working on this Christmas stuff, and I right away I thought, oh, she's perfect. So I'm gonna, write out some notes for her and see.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, man. As a dad, that's got to be thrilling.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
2.
2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is weird to watch them as they start doing these things.
Yeah.
I'm kind of blown away.
Well, before we go, there's
Yeah.
one last thing I want to ask you about. And that's all these pictures of birds that you post
Oh
on
yeah.
social media. What are you doing with those these days?
Um, so I started taking photos of birds maybe 5 years ago. I had a bunch of American Express points and 2 million actually express points to be used. So I bought some cool stuff, but including a camera and a few lenses. And just started. My sister's a birder. She's been doing it for a couple of decades. So she would take me out in the field with her, and we'd shoot birds. And I got addicted.
Take pictures of birds.
No, shooting them with a shotgun. I'm kidding.
Okay,
No,
yeah.
no, yeah,
A different kind of Smithsonian collection.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. No, shooting photos of birds.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. Okay.
So I've gotten better and better as I've gone. I've improved my equipment quite a bit. My photo gear. I mean, I have a really really nice Canon camera, and then a couple of nice lenses. And so last year, 2020, maybe the middle of the year, two friends of mine, Elaine Rubenstein and Shirley Galatly, that were friends in California.
Okay.
Elaine was my poetry professor, and her husband was also a professor of poetry. I took classes from him, and Shirley was in the class for poetry, and we just became close friends with the two couples, Elaine and her husband Peter, and Shirley and her husband Glenn. And so Elaine and Shirley put like a little mock-up of what a book of my stories, because I write stories to go with the photos, and they're usually pretty wacky. And they said, "Hey, this is what a book would look like. What do you think?" And I was just, "Yeah, let's do it." So it took several months, and we finally put it together. And then I actually have a copy of it here. The book is called Fernando's Birds, Photographs and Tales.
All right.
That's a Stellar's Jay on the cover with a peanut. It's been 3 years ago. These Stellar's Jays don't really come down where I live, but for some reason there was some depletion of their food up in the mountains, and this whole valley, North Valley of Albuquerque, there were hundreds and hundreds of Stellar's Jays, and because I have so many feeders around my house, they were coming. I would get 20, 30, 40 at a time just in the trees around, and I was buying these big old bags of peanuts for them, and it was crazy. So anyway, so the book came together, and it's very beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I would say that there's at least two reasons to have the book. One is the photography is fantastic.
Thanks.
You are at least as good a photographer as you are a musician.
Oh, wow,
and
thanks.
yeah, and if you're not into birds or photography, then you got to get the book for the stories. They're just
The stories are kind of crazy.
yeah. I would say if you need something that is lighthearted and will bring some joy and laughter, you need Fernando's Birds.
Yeah, thanks. Somebody said the other day, wrote a comment and said the stories are so profound and rich, and they're definitely not that. They're like, I thought, well, that means you just didn't read the book. And out of the stories are meant to be just sort of funny because and I think they're pretty funny. I have a blast.
Yeah.
Some of them are complete fiction, but I make them sound like they actually happened.
Right.
But there's one about an old lady getting carried off by a cooper's hawk and her dentures falling out in the neighbor's yard and everything. And somebody wrote when I posted that on Instagram, they said, "I hope that really didn't happen." So I said, "Well,
Well,
a cooper's hawk is too small to carry off a lady in her dentures, but."
depends on the size of the lady, I suppose.
And the dentures too, because these were large dentures.
Right. Well,
No, I was
Fernando,
going to say.
go ahead.
Yeah, just the book is available on my website, which is fernandoortega.com.
There you go.
Yeah, and all my music is there as well.
Okay. And we'll have that link in the podcast information also.
Oh, gracias.
Yes, de nada. All right. It has been a lot of fun to be with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Following Jesus is a way of life carried out over a lifetime. If this podcast has encouraged you to become a follower of Jesus or to follow him more closely, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this podcast or found it helpful, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts so others can find it more easily. Thank you for being with us today. On the Way is produced by the Baptist Standard, a donor-supported provider of news, opinion, and resources for living like Jesus. To make a donation, visit baptiststandard.com/donate. To receive the Baptist Standard weekly newsletter, visit baptiststandard.com and click or tap subscribe.